And welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the animal eye ink drawing. Now with this, you are going to be selecting an animal. It can be a hawk, it can be an owl, a tiger, wolf, bird, elephant, giraffe, cow, any type of animal as long as it's not a human. Because animals just have a lot more texture with their fur or their feathers or their skin if it's an amphibian or a lizard. So it just gives us a little bit more to work with when we are working with pen. Okay? Because with pen we can't shade smoothly like we can with the pencil, but we can use cross-hatching, we can use stippling, we can use regular hatching, and we can use those little scribbles like this here. So hopefully you went through and you did your worksheet and you were able to figure out what type of marks you want to use in order to do your drawing. For the most part, the hatching and the cross hatching are the ones that you're going to use the most, but the other ones will work as well. Just when we're dealing with something as specific as an eye, you have a tendency to want to have a little more precision with it. So when you go to do that, you can use a couple different types of pens. You can use a regular ballpoint pen like this, just your standard Bic round pen, call it like a rollerball type pen, or you can use one that's a little more precise, like the Sharpie pen here, or like a micron pen, or something that has a little bit more of a point. It's kind of like an ultra fine point Sharpie, so you can get a lot more details with this. And either one works. With a ballpoint pen like this, you can actually use it like a pencil, and you can do some shading with it. Just because by changing the amount of pressure that you put down, it works just the same as with the pencil. Now, what you're going to do, like always, we're going to do some thumbnail drawings. So we're going to do 2 of them. Okay, so we're going to have your 2 rectangles drawn out, and ultimately we're going to want to be able to draw out a little bit bigger than this like we usually do. So I've got one drawing here, and before you do this, you want to get on the Googles and do some searching and look up animal eyes. If you want to get more specific, you look up close-up of animal eyes, and we're looking for just one singular eyeball. We don't want to have 2. We're just looking for 1. So this one here is one that I'm going to do for the project as a whole. So it is an owl. Okay. Now, ultimately, what these are going to look like when we go through and do this is we're going to look like this here. All right. So we've got, I believe this is a cat eye. This is not an example that I did, but you can see how we've got a lot of details with, the eye circulating out this way. We've got a pupil in here. We've got a highlight in the pupil, and we've got all the details of the fur down in here. Now, if you want to, if you think, oh, this is a lot, I don't know if I can deal with drawing all of this detail here. Don't forget, we just did a project with a grid where if you really want to, you can take and you can draw a grid across your image on your iPad and do the same thing that we just did. And that will tell you where all the information needs to go. And ultimately, it's going to be all the fur and all the little details that are going to get drawn out. So if you don't have all of the specifics there, then you can do that. So I'm going to do this, and really the thumbnail in this instance is for placement of the image. Now, we don't necessarily want it to be right smack dab in the middle like this photo is here. It's right in the middle. I would have a tendency to kind of have it shifted left to right a little bit, but that's just the way that this image was done. So, and because it is looking directly at us, it works out that it's in the middle because it draws all of that focus there. If it was at a little bit of an angle, it wouldn't have that same effect. It would look a little odd to have it in the middle, but because it's staring straight at us, we can have that be right there in the middle and looking right at us. So I'm going to do that same thing and just kind of sketch out on my thumbnail here. So I've got the pupil, I've got the iris. Remember, the pupil is the black part of the eye. Now, if you're doing something like a cat, then it's not going to have a round pupil, or like an alligator, because they have pupils that are vertical. And actually, if you get into, I believe it's a goat, they have pupils that are horizontal. So those are kind of wild to look at because it's not anything like what we're used to looking at. So just kind of get this sketched out here. Say, all right, so I've got this color ring that comes around here. We've got this that runs around like that. The black, we got some brown. Now this is just a real rough sketch. Remember, it's just trying to figure out where things are. Now we are doing this on a 5x7 piece of paper. So when we go to draw this out, okay, remember we're gonna draw light, because ultimately this is all getting covered up by pen. So we don't want to draw stuff in there super heavy, because while we will be able to do some erasing, we're not going to be able to get all of it. All right, so we're just kind of get this laid out in place here. So I'm going to say right here in the middle and figure out my size. However big I get the pupil drawn kind of determines how everything else is. Now, with this, now when I do the artwork that I do, which is mostly portraits, I always say, if you don't get the eyes right, the rest of it does not matter. The rest of it can be absolutely perfect, but if the eye itself, the iris and the pupil is off, then it's not going to look right. So take a little bit of extra time here and draw this out. Make sure that it's looking good, so that way you know that it's all going to work out. And from here, I got this comes up. Got a little bit of the black that comes in here, comes down kind of to a point like this, wraps down around underneath, and this comes back up. All right, so get all the rest of this sketched out. And with the magic of television, we have a finished version of this here. Now, from here, this is where we're going to start to put our pen down. Now, I'm going to get started drawing on this a little bit, and then it's going to go into a time lapse, and then we'll pop up at the end of the video so you can see the final project, or product rather. Now, with this particular one, there's a reflection of the guy in a building that's behind it. I'm not worried about that. I'll put a highlight in on the top of it. So we'll say there's a highlight that's just going to be kind of up here in the top, have it kind of round a little bit to match the point of the eye. But I'm not going to put the reflection of the guy and all that it's in there. It's pretty cool that that's in there, but we don't want that for our drawing. Now, the biggest thing with working with pen, obviously it does not erase. So we want to take our time. We want to build up layers. If we go too dark, you cannot get it to go back light. We can't put white out down, because then when we go to over that, then it's not going to look the same. So it'll actually stand out even more. Okay, so I'm going to start with this, and you want your marks to be very directional with this. Now, with his eye, there is a little bit of a heavier ridge that runs around the outside of the pupil here. So I'm going to get that put in and thicken this up a little bit. But then once we do that, I'm going to start to go in towards the center, because it is ultimately an eye is round. So we're going to fill that in. So I'm going to kind of probably start here in the middle and work my way out like this. Now this is pretty dark, so that's ultimately it's all going to get filled in, but we're going to come in and just work my way through like this. You can use a variety of pens with this, and that will help give you a little bit of change. Even though all of this is black, you can kind of see how it gives it a little bit different line quality. And then if we come in over the top of what we did with the other pen, kind of changes it up a little bit. So it gives you like a black and a light black. So it changes the overall look. All right, so we are going to go into a time lapse here. Now you notice I've got all of these little feathers here. All of those are going to go into consideration. So take your time with it. Don't just go in and scribble it all out. Each one of these little things is a mark. So it's mark, 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 mark. Okay, we can see all the individual lines here. It's not going to happen all at once. Get this filled in. You can see in here, this kind of the scribble technique in here, because it's kind of dark in general. We've got a little bit of that going in here. We've got some hatching and some cross hatching in the white of the eye. and then hatching out here in the fur. This is very directional. So as you put your lines down, you want them to go in the way that the fur is on whatever critter you decided to do. Now, if